Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Official 24 channel. Nikki Newman drops a truth bomb that detonates every carefully constructed lie, every legacy built on bloodlines, and every assumption the powerful families of the young and the restless have ever clung to, because in one trembling, tear-filled confession, Nikki reveals that Victor Newman is not Victoria Newman's biological father, and the real man behind Victoria's DNA shatters the Abbott family beyond repair, unraveling a secret so deeply buried it poisons the past, the present, and the future all at once, as Nikki, haunted by guilt, driven by a need for redemption, and pushed to the brink by mounting evidence she can no longer ignore, finally admits that years ago, during one of the darkest, most chaotic chapters of her life, when her marriage to Victor was fractured by betrayal, distance, and emotional isolation, she had a brief but life-altering affair with Jack Abbott, an affair she believed ended without consequence, an affair she buried under denial and fear, an affair that produced a child she passed off as Victor's because the timing was close enough, the truth too terrifying, and Victor Newman too dangerous a man to cross, and now, decades later, a routine medical emergency becomes the spark that ignites the inferno when Victoria requires specialized treatment and her genetic markers don't align with Victor's, prompting quiet questions, whispered consultations, and eventually a DNA test that refuses to lie, forcing Nikki to confront the reality that the secret she swore would never surface has claws, teeth, and a devastating appetite for destruction. And when Nikki finally stands in the living room at the Newman Ranch, hands shaking, voice cracking, eyes locked on Victor, Victoria, and Nick, she confesses everything in a single, devastating moment. Jack Abbott is Victoria's biological father, and the silence that follows is more violent than any scream, as Victor's face hardens not with rage, but with something colder, more lethal, a wounded pride calcifying into vengeance, because to Victor Newman this isn't just betrayal, it's humiliation on a generational scale, a theft of legacy, a lie that made him raise another man's child as his heir, and as Victoria struggles to breathe under the weight of the revelation, her entire identity collapsing in on itself, memories recontextualized, loyalty shattered, she is forced to confront the unthinkable, that the man she has spent her life trying to impress, emulate, and sometimes destroy, is not her biological father, and the man she has warred with professionally and personally, the man she accused of manipulating her family, is, and across town, when Jack Abbott learns the truth, the ground disappears beneath his feet as guilt, shock, pride, and terror collide, because Jack doesn't just gain a daughter. He gains responsibility for a lifetime of absence, for milestones missed, for pain unknowingly inflicted, and the Abbott family implodes as Diane, already walking a fragile line of trust, is blindsided by the revelation that Jack has a child with Nikki Newman, the woman who has haunted their marriage like a ghost that refuses to rest, while Kyle and Ashley are forced to grapple with a reality where Victoria Newman is suddenly their blood, a bridge between two rival dynasties that were never meant to merge, and the consequences ripple outward like a seismic wave, because Victor, feeling emasculated and enraged, declares war not just on Jack, but on the entire Abbott legacy, vowing to dismantle Jabot piece by piece, using the revelation as both weapon and justification, while Nikki, crushed by regret, begs for forgiveness she knows she doesn't deserve, haunted by the knowledge that her silence robbed Victoria of the truth and Jack of a daughter, and Victoria herself becomes the emotional epicenter of the catastrophe, torn between fury at Nikki for lying, resentment toward Jack for never knowing, and a profound sense of betrayal toward Victor, who, despite not being her biological father, is the man who shaped her, challenged her, and molded her into the ruthless business titan she became, and as Victoria reels, questions consume her. Was her drive inherited from Victor or Jack? Were her instincts Newman or Abbott? Was her life ever truly her own? And the city watches as alliances fracture and new ones form, because Nick struggles to redefine his relationship with his sister, wondering what this means for their shared past, while Billy, ever the wild card, sees opportunity in chaos and pain, tempted to exploit the fracture for leverage even as he grapples with the emotional fallout of Victoria being pulled into the Abbott orbit. And as secrets pile atop secrets, it becomes clear that this revelation isn't an ending but a beginning, because Victor, refusing to relinquish the daughter he raised, makes it clear that biology will not erase ownership in his mind, setting up a brutal tug-of-war over Victoria's loyalty, while Jack, driven by remorse and an aching desire to make things right, offers Victoria something Victor never could: honesty without manipulation, support without control. Yet Victoria, wounded and wary, isn't ready to belong anywhere, standing instead in the wreckage of two empires, unsure which one deserves her, or if she must build something entirely her own. And as Genoa City braces for impact, one truth becomes undeniable. This DNA earthquake doesn't just expose a secret, it rewrites the map of power, destroys the Abbott family's sense of moral high ground, humbles the mighty Victor Newman in a way no enemy ever has, and forces every character to confront the terrifying question of whether blood defines destiny or whether the choices made in love, fear, and ambition matter more. And in the end, as Nikki collapses under the weight of her confession, Jack stands staring at a future he never imagined. Victor plots vengeance with ice in his veins, and Victoria steps into the unknown carrying two legacies and trusting neither. The young and the restless proves once again that in Genoa City, the truth never stays buried, DNA never lies, and when secrets finally come to light, they don't just break hearts, they burn empires to the ground. The fallout from Nikki's confession reverberates through every corner of Genoa City like an unstoppable tidal wave, and in its wake, the city itself feels different, thicker, heavier, as if the very air has been poisoned by decades of lies finally exposed. Victor Newman, who has spent his life building empires, crushing rivals, and bending reality to his will, finds himself caught in a storm he cannot control. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, are now burning with something deeper, something raw: betrayal. Not just Nikki's betrayal, but the betrayal of fate itself, of a universe that allowed the child he raised as his own to belong biologically to a man he has spent a lifetime competing against, a man whose very existence has always been a challenge, a rival, a thorn in his side: Jack Abbott. For Victor, the revelation is both personal and professional, a venomous cocktail of humiliation and outrage that threatens to destabilize everything he has built. He had not only raised Victoria as his daughter, but had shaped her in his image, instilling in her a drive, a ruthlessness, a cunning that reflected his own. And now he faces the terrifying question: if she is not his by blood, is any of her really his? The thought gnaws at him, erodes the certainty with which he navigated life, and leaves him teetering on the edge of an emotional precipice he has never encountered before. Nikki, meanwhile, is drowning in guilt. Her confession, which she had delayed for decades, does not bring relief, but only amplifies the pain. The carefully constructed walls of her life, the delicate balances she maintained between love, loyalty, and survival, have crumbled. She watches Victor, the man she married, the man she loved, the man whose life she intertwined with her own, retreat behind a wall of icy silence, and she wonders if forgiveness is even possible. Her hands tremble, her voice quivers, and for the first time in years, Nikki feels powerless. Her motivations, once clear in her own mind, protecting Victoria, preserving her family, keeping peace, now seem pitifully inadequate in the face of the chaos she has unleashed. She imagines Victor at his most dangerous, calculating every possible revenge, plotting every possible maneuver to remind Jack, and perhaps the world, that while blood may be one measure of family, power, influence, and legacy are measured in the ability to bend people to your will, and Victor Newman bends everyone, even in heartbreak. Victoria Newman, the child at the center of this earthquake, stands paralyzed by the weight of truth. The revelation reshapes her identity, twists her memories, and challenges the very foundation upon which she built her life. Every milestone she attributed to Victor's guidance, the ruthless boardroom tactics, the decisive business maneuvers, the sharp instincts for negotiation, now feels like a borrowed legacy, a set of traits inherited from a father she never truly knew. And yet, Jack Abbott, the man who has always been her family in name only, suddenly occupies a new, uncomfortable space in her life. He is biological, he is real, but he is also a stranger who carries the baggage of absence and lost time. The collision of these two truths, raised by Victor, born of Jack, creates a chasm within Victoria that she struggles to navigate. The very essence of her self-concept feels unstable, like a skyscraper shaken by an earthquake, threatening to crumble unless she finds a way to reconcile two worlds that have always been at odds. Jack Abbott, on the other hand, is caught between elation and anguish. The knowledge that Victoria is his daughter fills him with a fierce, almost desperate joy, but it is tempered by regret, shame, and the haunting awareness of all the years lost. He remembers moments he could have shared, guidance he could have offered, celebrations he could have witnessed, and he mourns not only for the time stolen by circumstance, but also for the emotional wounds his absence may have caused. Jack's relationship with Diane, already delicate due to secrets and the complexities of their marriage, now faces an unprecedented challenge. Diane watches as Jack, the man she married, wrestles with this newfound paternal reality, and she fears that the intrusion of the Newman legacy into their lives will fracture the foundation of their family. The Abbott household, once a relatively stable anchor in Genoa City, is now a tinderbox of anticipation, uncertainty, and emotional volatility. Across town, the extended Newman and Abbott networks are also reeling. Nick Newman, Victoria's brother, feels a profound disorientation. His protective instincts, honed over decades to shield Victoria from harm, now confront an entirely new paradigm. The sister he knew, the sister he loved, is simultaneously Victor's daughter in terms of upbringing but Jack's in terms of biology. How does one reconcile such a duality? Nick's role as protector is suddenly complicated by questions of loyalty, inheritance, and allegiance. He wonders how Victor will react, how Jack will assert his newfound paternity, and how Victoria herself will navigate the complex web of expectations, emotions, and family politics. Billy Abbott, ever the opportunist, sees potential in this chaos. While most would recoil at the emotional fallout, Billy recognizes the power vacuum and the strategic possibilities the DNA revelation creates. He considers the impact on corporate alliances, on family rivalries, and on personal leverage. With Abbott and Newman Enterprises poised for upheaval, Billy contemplates positioning himself as a mediator, a broker, or even a benefactor, roles he can exploit to elevate his status within both families. But even Billy, whose instincts are often sharp, cannot fully predict the human emotional response, the unpredictable dynamics that only decades of deeply personal relationships can create. The media in Genoa City senses the seismic tremor before even the families themselves realize the magnitude. Whispers turn into headlines, headlines into scandal, and scandal into a feeding frenzy. Reporters swarm the Newman and Abbott compounds, eager to capture every reaction, every look, every word. Socialites, business rivals, and even political figures watch closely, calculating their own moves in response to the upheaval. The revelation transforms from a private family secret into a public spectacle, forcing every character to navigate not only personal fallout, but also the court of public opinion. In a city defined by power, influence, and perception, the truth is both a weapon and a liability. Corporate dynamics between Newman Enterprises and Abbott are now irrevocably altered. Victor, historically unchallenged in his domain, faces a unique threat. Jack, once a competitor, now holds a biological stake in the Newman legacy. While Victor may claim that blood does not define loyalty or leadership, the optics of the revelation empower Jack with legitimacy, and shareholders, employees, and board members sense vulnerability. Tensions escalate as both men jockey for position, strategically positioning themselves to either consolidate influence or exploit weakness. Every board meeting, every business decision, every negotiation becomes a potential battlefield where personal and corporate vendettas intermingle, raising the stakes to unprecedented levels. Meanwhile, Victoria herself is not content to be a passive participant in this drama. While initially reeling from the revelation, she begins to assert agency, determined to navigate the complexities on her own terms. She confronts Victor, demanding clarity about his expectations, his intentions, and his perception of what family truly means. She confronts Jack, demanding honesty, emotional transparency, and a commitment to forge a relationship that acknowledges both past failures and potential future bonds. In asserting herself, Victoria becomes both a bridge and a wildcard, wielding the power of choice in a landscape where loyalties, bloodlines, and ambition collide. The psychological impact on the characters is profound. Victor, accustomed to control, experiences vulnerability and loss, emotions that challenge his identity as an untouchable power broker. Nikki, burdened by decades of secrecy, confronts the moral consequences of her choices, grappling with guilt, shame, and the desire for redemption. Jack faces the paradox of sudden paternal authority intertwined with regret over lost time. Victoria navigates identity dissonance and the tension between nature and nurture. Each character's trajectory is irrevocably altered, their decisions now driven not only by ambition but by emotion, legacy, and the search for reconciliation or revenge. Family gatherings, once safe spaces, are now arenas of tension. Holidays, celebrations, and casual visits carry the weight of unspoken questions. Will Victor accept Jack's role? Will Jack overstep boundaries? How will Victoria balance her loyalties? Even seemingly mundane interactions, dinners, phone calls, or boardroom meetings, become charged with unspoken stakes. The character's emotional armor is tested, revealing vulnerabilities and strengths that had previously been hidden or suppressed. Outside the immediate Newman and Abbott circle, allies, rivals, and acquaintances are forced to recalibrate. Lauren Fenmore, for example, must navigate her friendship with the Newmans while managing her professional interactions with the Abbotts. Sharon Newman, often a mediator in family chaos, finds herself drawn into the emotional turbulence, offering counsel, empathy, or criticism at crucial moments. Friends, employees, and even adversaries are suddenly implicated in the fallout, each forced to choose sides or risk being caught in the crossfire. The romantic dimension adds further complexity. Relationships, both past and present, are destabilized as emotional loyalties are tested. Romantic partners of Victoria, Jack, and even Victor must negotiate not only their personal feelings, but also the tangled web of family intrigue. Jealousy, resentment, desire, and admiration intertwine in unpredictable ways, creating a volatile cocktail of interpersonal tension. Every kiss, every conversation, every decision is imbued with new meaning, the specter of the DNA revelation looming over every interaction. Therapeutically, the characters are unprepared. Psychologists, counselors, and even spiritual advisors are brought in to help manage the shockwaves, yet even professional guidance struggles to contend with the scale of disruption. The revelation transcends typical family secrets, touching on identity, morality, ethics, and the very definition of self. It forces every character to reevaluate their choices, their values, and their relationships, creating a ripple effect that challenges not only personal beliefs but also long-standing social norms in Genoa City. The business consequences are equally dramatic. Newman Enterprises faces shareholder unrest, media scrutiny, and questions about succession planning. Abbotts experiences similar turbulence, with executives questioning Jack's ability to balance personal upheaval with corporate responsibility. Investors, partners, and competitors monitor every move, anticipating mistakes, miscalculations, or oversights that could shift the balance of power. In this climate of uncertainty, every decision carries amplified consequences, and even minor missteps can escalate into corporate crises. Ultimately, the revelation reshapes Genoa City itself. Power structures are destabilized, alliances shift, and the social landscape becomes increasingly unpredictable. The Newman and Abbott dynasties, once bastions of control, are forced to confront the limits of their influence, the fragility of legacy, and the enduring power of truth. In this crucible, characters discover resilience, ingenuity, and the capacity for forgiveness, even as they navigate betrayal, resentment, and ambition. As the